you go.
Over time, realized I wasn't in control of my destiny and my family's destiny, and just slowly started to feel that as I saw colleagues becoming like casualties, I would just say, of like corporate America. Ultimately landed on real estate. Did research, figured out I want to do real estate. I started off pretty small by just buying duplexes.
You're helping others invest their capital.
Yeah.
Right. Whereas without you, they wouldn't have that opportunity.
Some of the goals I have are around, their personal goals are around financial freedom and like different levels of financial freedom. Like the first level is just being able to pay for all your expenses. Yeah, we have more control over our future, which has been it's been great.
Hey everyone, we have a very special guest on the Life by Design podcast today. It's Joel Sullivan. Not only did he quit his W-2 and went into real estate, he is now also a renowned coach in a very special educational group. Those of you who are thinking about going into real estate, maybe thinking about, you're at risk at your own position and might think of doing real estate, you better listen up. Here we go. All right. Well, Mr. Joel Sullivan, welcome to the Life by Design through Real Estate Investing podcast. We're really excited to have you. Joe, tell us a little bit more about you.
Yeah, Alex, thank you. Appreciate having me on. We're friends, and it's actually a goal of mine this year to be on more podcasts and put myself out there. So thanks for helping me achieve my goals.
Hey, anytime, buddy.
Yeah. So a little bit about me. I am a husband, father of four girls. So total girl dad here. All little 11, 8, 6, and 2. So
is there more on the way, Joe?
No, there's no more on the way.
Okay.
My wife put an end to that.
All right.
So yeah, I'd love to have a boy, but girls are awesome, as you know. So
yes,
I live in Kansas City, so right in the heart of the country, and that's where I do my investing too, is in the Midwest. So do you mean to give you like the background of how I got started, or?
Oh man, Joe, I think your background is so interesting, exciting, inspiring at the same time. I mean, we met through Jake and Gino, right? And last year we only had a couple chats. This year we've definitely had more. Tell us more about how you even, I mean, real estate, it's not one of those things where people wake up, Joe, and says, hey, I'm going to do real estate, right? You know, you went to school. I mean, tell us about you when you were in college. Let's start from there, man.
Sure, yeah. Yeah, when I was in school, I wanted to be involved with like college athletics. That was my dream at the time, was to be like an athletic director for a major university. So I went to school for that. Actually went to grad school for that as well. And when I finished grad school, it was 2008, so right at the heart of the recession, and I couldn't really find a job in the industry at the time. So I started expanding my search to outside opportunities. Found something, went pretty well. I worked there for 12 years actually after school, so very committed. Was there 12 years. Learned a ton. We supported Fortune 500 companies as facility services, so worked with a lot of really high-level clients. Learned a lot of, in some cases, what not to do from some bosses at the time, and then just over time started to have a family, married and having a family. Over time, realized I wasn't in control of my destiny and my family's destiny. And just slowly started to feel that as I saw colleagues becoming like casualties, I would just say, of like corporate America, and it was a relatively large company, and there were layoffs just about every other year, and it was just a very uncomfortable feeling to be, to be potentially be in those shoes, because
right.
the colleagues that were getting laid off were, and humbly, they were really not much different than me in a lot of cases, similar performance. And so what I did was I had this this entrepreneurial itch, get it from my father. He'd started a few businesses, and so wanted to diversify and have some alternative income. So ultimately landed on real estate. Did research, figured out I want to do real estate. I started off pretty small by just buying duplexes for it's kind of like a security thing. Wanted to have, like I said, additional income in case I did get laid off, frankly.
And that's how a lot of people started, right? They start off with single family duplexes first.
Yeah, and bought we bought about 25 units. Pretty quick in about 2 years, so about 10 or 12 a year, and started to run out of my own money. so really, that's really what pushed me to dive deeper and get educated. So did a lot of research, tried to find a better way, frankly, figure out a way to continue growing, and landed and realized that I needed to get educated. So what at first I did is I just overconsumed books and podcasts and whatever I could get my hands on free on. There's a ton of resources out there. And then we decided we wanted to stay in scale up. So we decided we wanted to do in multifamily. It was actually between multifamily and storage at the time. And I landed on multifamily. Candidly, at the time, I don't really remember why.
Yeah.
But I picked one. So I picked one and I leaned in and I went for it. So I joined an educational group you mentioned before, Jake and Gino. It's more than that. It's it's networking, and there's a lot of pretty powerful things happen when you get in those groups. And that was about 3 years ago. I joined that group, and it took me a year to find my first what I call big deal, which was a 40 unit. At the time was massive, because the largest I had bought was a 6 unit on my own. So it was just, going to 40 units from 6 was overwhelming and felt impossible, candidly. So, yeah.
And not only are you getting education from Jake and Gino, you're also a coach, Joe.
I am now. Yeah. Fast forward, now I'm able to give back. That group, frankly, it's changed my life. So it's incredible now to be able to be on the other side and be able to help people who are in my shoes when I started, and do the same for them. So now I'm coaching, and I'm actually having students that are closing deals. I even have a student that I did a deal with. We partnered on a deal. So it's really very powerful. It's like full circle, being able to help people to get where I am today.
That's awesome, Joe. Now bring us back to when you first decided to leave your W-2, right?
Yeah.
When was your family or was your wife supportive? A lot of people who think of that, they're so freaked out by it. And a lot of people tell them it's a crazy idea. Why would you ever do that? Did you ever get that in your ears?
Oh yeah. So it was it's going on. This summer it'll be 2 years. So
congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. And it was really scary for me. Yeah, because my entire family going back is mostly educators, so teachers, principals. They're in education, so that was kind of the path that everyone thought I would take. It was kind of unspoken, and so it's a safe. It was a safe thing to do in my family. So when I didn't do education out of school, that was a little different. But then when I started talking about potentially doing this, which was leaving my W-2 that I had for 12 years, so that's safe for most people. But it actually was, to me, it was super. It was actually scary. It got to the point of being scary because, I had started to become making enough money to where I was dispensable, like I had mentioned earlier, and without that I was the sole source of income for our house. So, without that job, couldn't pay the bills. So started, talking to my wife about we got a certain level of passive income, and there were more and more people being laid off. So it started becoming very like, hey, this is something we really need to really think and pray about. So we talked about it for, I would say, probably a year or so. And what ended up happening is we got to the point where I didn't want to wake up someday and like have regrets and have to tell my children, I wish I would have done this. So we played out the worst case scenario game. Like we did this over a course of months. It wasn't like in one dinner.
Right, it was like over one weekend, One weekend. Let's throw away the last 12 years, what we worked for. Yeah.
Yeah. But what we did was we just said, okay, so like completely let's fast forward, and we fail miserably. I fail miserably, and real estate does not work out. What's the worst case scenario? And kind of what we landed on was, well, we'd have to sell our house. We'd probably have to potentially sell one of the vehicles, and we have to move in with family. And that, right, it doesn't sound awesome, but we were like, well, we've actually lived with family before, so it's actually not, it's not the end of the world. I've had to go back and get a job, and it's just like, wow, that's, when you really put it like that, it's like, well, we just do what we did 10 years ago when we lived with the family.
Right.
And it's like, so.
And you had 4 kids at the time?
Yeah. Well, yes, we did. We just had the number 4, we call it.
Oh, it takes a lot of courage to do that. That's a bold move, but that's a move that was necessary.
Yeah. It was scary. It's still, it's still kind of, it's like, wow, I don't have a paycheck, so it's still all on us to make it. So, but it was necessary because I think I would have been miserable if I would have stayed in corporate America. Now I know it's great for some people, so don't get me wrong. Some people love their jobs and love that security. I would say, so, some people. So I'm not knocking it. It got to the point for me where it was I was starting to become miserable. And actually it made me feel less, like we talk about security, but like I felt like I had no security and no control over my future.
Right. Especially when you say you've watched people in your company who could just be let go. Yeah. Because of massive layoffs.
Yeah. That
right.
And yeah, I mean, I was probably a step away from that. So
yeah.
We're in reality, because I'm not naive to think that I was I was at a certain point where I was making enough money to where I was just a number to them, and I knew that.
Right. You mentioned earlier worst case scenarios, and do you purchase in real estate? I like to go in sometimes thinking about that, because say if this deal didn't go well. Okay, what's the worst case scenario? And then from there, we try to figure out ways to mitigate it or figure out ways to prevent that from happening. Do you do that with real estate yourself, or is it just life?
Yeah, no, for sure. Every deal, stress test every deal. Like you said, the worst case scenario, if your taxes are wrong, if your insurance doubles, which is happening in a lot of cases right now. So you stress test those things and say in the worst case scenario, how does the deal operate? Now you have your pro forma, which is how you think it's going to operate, but you always want to test, especially when you're having investors work with you. You always want to stress test it to see, does the deal still cash flow? Can you still give returns to your investors? In a worst case scenario like this, last thing you want to do is have a capital call. So
right.
So that's why you stress test them for sure.
Have you ever had, what is your worst case scenario that's ever happened in a deal? Tell us about some challenges that you've had.
Yeah, we have one deal right now. We're still operating it, and we bought it right during the middle of COVID, and we completely underestimated the time frame on supplies, materials. because of the supply chain constraints. It was a large capital capex or rehab project, and we couldn't get a lot of the materials in. It took months and months and months. So you couldn't execute our business plan, which was to improve the property and raise rents. So we had to sit and wait, and it really strained. And it was a bridge loan, which I would advise not doing now. Lesson learned. We're still operating the property. It's doing fine. It just is definitely not. It's definitely close to the worst case scenario. Because of some variables that we couldn't control. So fortunately, we had enough reserves. We have a lot of reserves for the property, and we were able to mitigate some of those issues. But yeah, it took 6 months to get the roofing material in, and some of the other material to help with the improvements. So and then we had in this particular case the lender required us to complete the project. So they would require you to complete the roof, for example, before you could do a draw, meaning before they would pay you back for that. That was part of their. Part of it is you do a construction draw after you complete the project.
Right,
so,
right.
If you start to deplete some of your reserves, then for example, if the project is $100,000 and you only have $90,000 in your reserves, you can't afford to pay for the rehab out of your own pocket and then get reimbursed. So we had to do a GP 0% loan to the property, and to be able to, frankly, just to be able to complete some of the capex, because we were depleting our reserves because of the unforeseen supply chain constraints. So yeah, there's always curveballs. You make sure you're well capitalized, and always underwrite and always prepare for the worst, and obviously hope for the best.
Right. Well, the great thing is you and your GP team got together and put your minds together and says, "Hey, let's make it happen."
Yeah. We solved the problem. We were, like I said, the group was well capitalized enough. It just definitely didn't go according to plan. Now we still own the property, and we're getting out of the loan. We're refinancing out of it. The capex is I'd say it's like 90% done, so it's almost done. We're just probably maybe a year behind what we had originally anticipated. So yeah, that's it's a 7-year hold, so it's definitely not the end of the world, but definitely not going according to how we planned it. So
yeah. Now, what were some of the things that in your real estate journey, Joe, that went better than you thought? Or I mean, there's always challenges along the way.
Yeah. Right.
No doubt. I mean, I think life, we get more curveballs than there's just straight fastballs.
Of course.
What were some things that went really well?
Things that went much better or smoother, I would say, than I anticipated was being able to raise capital. Not just me, but my partners and I. Capital. It was a massive limiting belief for me. So when I started, just buying duplexes, I thought, well, it's going to take me, I calculated however many years. It was 10, 20 years to be able to get where I want to get, because, the idea of saving money and, just the idea of using other people's money, was foreign to me and scary.
Right.
So once you get in the right circle and the right group, and get educated, that part became, I'd just say, much easier, using other people's capital, in a good way, because we're giving them good returns too. So it's not, I say using other people's capital, it kind of sounds like, has like a little bit of a negative tone to it, but
hey, you're helping others invest their capital.
Yeah.
Right. Whereas without you, they wouldn't have that opportunity.
That's right. Yeah, that was a huge limiting belief that got crushed. So that's gone much smoother than I ever would have anticipated.
That's awesome. As you get into real estate further and further along in your journey, raising capital is one thing, right? Then there's the operations. At the beginning, were you aware that there were all these roles?
No, I don't think I was completely because, like for example, in a syndication, I think the role that I probably underestimated the most was the asset management.
Right.
That was the one piece that I was aware that raising capital is going to be very challenging, and then like actually operating like property management, that was going to be challenging, but didn't quite understand the gravity of having to tie it all together, which is what the asset manager does.
Right.
That's a really challenging position that kind of I think gets undervalued quite a bit.
Yeah. Now, what is some things since you've left your job, now that you're in real estate full time? Are there new stressors that's been put on you? Do you feel like there's more stress? Is it different? What is your take on that?
Yeah, I definitely have a different level of stress. At times it feels more stressful.
Uh-huh.
Because I'm adamant that I'm not going to go back to a job. So yeah, I mean, I put myself out there to do this, to do be a full-time entrepreneur, and operate real estate. And so, this last probably, let's just say 6 to 12 months has been really slow in commercial real estate, as you know. Interest rates completely bombed commercial real estate, so it's been very slow. So that's been a different level of stress because I make my money off of deals. So it's either it's refinancing them, it's selling them, it's cash flow from the deals. So when there's no deals there, it's like taking a pay cut, I guess I would say.
Right.
So in that regard, growth has stalled quite a bit, and so I definitely think that I can feel that stress over the last 12 months. You got to stick to your principles. You got to stick to your underwriting. You can't jam or can't force a deal. But there's definitely that different level of stress. It's like what's the saying? You eat what you kill when you're an entrepreneur, and I can definitely feel that.
Absolutely. Now, entrepreneurship, it's not for everybody, right? Who do you believe it is not for? Like, what people who are listening to this show? There's people who want to get into real estate, but there's also some people that needs to hear the truth and the transparency, right? It's not always glamorous and people show cars, houses, and all that. What are some of the negative sides, or who shouldn't get into try to real estate full time?
Yeah, I see it a lot actually, like with new students.
Yes.
That I coach, my friends are coaches also, our colleagues are coaches, and hear about it a lot. Like people will start in education in the community, for example, and they have a very high paying job, right? So they have a job, they make a lot of money. I don't want to stereotype, but like a doctor, for example, is a good example. Somebody who makes a lot of money and thinks that they want to be, they want to buy apartment complexes, and they see people like me doing it and think it's easy. They get in, and then after a while, they realize how hard it is, and how blessed they are to have the massively high-paying job. And then they realize they just want to be a passive investor. So I see it all the time. That they'll try to go buy a property on their own, and most doctors or attorneys or you name the profession that is very highly paid. Most of them work a lot of hours, and are massively stressed, and they don't have the time because owning and operating a real estate company is a full-time job plus some. So I've just noticed a lot of them it usually takes time, but realize, I'm probably better suited to just do what I'm passionate about and great at, which is being a doctor or a lawyer or whatever profession, and then just investing in that with somebody who operates full time, and that can be my way of being a real estate owner and operator.
Absolutely. I see that as well.
Yeah.
With
your world, right? Yeah.
Right. People always ask me, "Hey, Alex, you ever want to quit the practice?" I said, "No." I said, I'm not getting into real estate to quit the practice. I said, if anything, the practice supercharges what I can do in real estate.
That's right. Yeah. That's absolutely right. I was with a physician last week when I went on that trip to Ireland I had mentioned, and one of the people there was a physician, and he had talked to me about how, he thought he's very passionate about what he does, but he has this itch to do real estate. And I was like, well, don't stop what you're doing if you like what you're doing, because, like you said, it can fuel your ability to invest. There's some people, like myself, when I had a full-time job, I made I don't know, half or a third of what somebody like him was making. So I didn't have that fuel, the cash flow coming in to have the ability to invest. So I think that's great advice for people who are high income earners.
Right. Now, what has it changed in the last couple of years for you and your family, your relationship with your wife, your relationship with your kids? I mean, all the time freedom. Tell me more about that.
Yeah, it's interesting. I used to use the word freedom a lot, because that's why I told myself I did this for. And I think it's still true to an extent, but I think it actually has more to do with control. Control over my time, and control over my future and my family's future. So I've recently learned that it was actually not about freedom as much as it was control, which was actually kind of an epiphany for me. But yeah, I can work, for the most part. I can work where I want to, when I want. I shouldn't say when I want to, but where I want to and with whom I want to. Which is a complete shift for me. In the past, it was, you go to work at this time, you go home at this time. Essentially, if they needed me to go on a trip for work, I was, you didn't really have a choice.
Right.
So I'm not missing practices for my kids or games for my kids, unless it's my choice. My wife and I have the more ability to spend more time together. It's good and bad, because I work from home, so
right.
So we see each other a lot more. So, but it's great. But we have more control over our future, which has been it's been great.
How do you think that has, or that will, or maybe already has, changed the trajectories of your children?
Yeah, I'm hoping it will, if it hasn't already. And really, what I'm hoping to do with them is to educate them, and empower them and show them what they're capable of, and that if they want to have a job, like if they want to go work for a company and that's what they love to do, then that's fine. Obviously going to stop them, but empower them to show them that they have the ability to have control over their destiny. And really, it's the education. Like, nobody will be able to take that from them. So educating them at an early age, and taking them with me to some of the properties, showing them some things. Right now, they don't have a lot of interest. The 11-year-old has some interest, but the others don't really care.
Yeah, they're too young. They're like, I don't even know what I'm doing here. Where's the slide and the swings?
Yeah. They don't care. Because I make them work when I go, so they don't really like that. But hopefully someday as they get older, they'll take an interest and see, and I can really show them what it is that I do.
Absolutely. So what does the next 2-3 years, Joe, look like for you? Or 5 or 10 years? What do you want to do in real estate?
Yeah, I mean, my some of the goals I have are around, their personal goals are around financial freedom and like different levels of financial freedom. Like the first level is just being able to pay for all your expenses, off of passive income. The next level is essentially being able to double that, so you make twice as much money off passive income as it takes you to live. So the trick of that is to keep your expenses down, while you're growing your passive income, and not have your expenses grow with your passive income. I found that to be a little challenging, but yeah, to manage your personal expenses and income like you would a budget, really. So that's a big goal of ours, is to just become more financially free. And then as far as real estate growing, I have goals to grow a syndication company to larger levels. So over the next 5 to 10 years, and yeah, it's I'm excited. I feel like I'm just getting started. I've got my whole life ahead of me. So not going to get too hung up on like annual goals and things like that. I do have them, but I'll hit my goals eventually. It's just essentially by not quitting, by not stopping. Yeah.
You won't fail if you don't quit, right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
If someone were to be in your shoes 5 years ago, right, who was maybe seeing, especially people in tech right now, they're seeing the layoffs. That's right. They're seeing the people right next door to them or in the next cubicle getting laid off. But they're so comfortable. Maybe they were in your shoes, who've worked at their job, 10, 12 years. What type of advice, and how did these people even start doing something like real estate? What kind of advice can you give them?
Yeah, no, I mean, I feel them. Yeah, there's a lot of people going through that right now, especially in out where you're West Coast, where you're at.
Right.
I'm hearing about some in New York too. Not tech as much, but some people in financial positions.
Yeah, it just gets to trickle down.
Yeah, it's definitely coming. I feel for everybody. I'll pray for everybody. But yeah, my advice would be to get educated first. Well, I would say almost simultaneously. Get educated for free first. So read books and podcasts, like this, like Alex's podcast, and consume those things. But I also say take action. So the longer you wait, I mean, the best. What's the saying? The best time to buy it's to plant a tree, but the best time to buy an apartment was 5 years ago. The next best time is today. So you could use that. I wouldn't go big at first. I would buy a single family or a duplex or a triplex or something like that. If I would definitely do that again. I would not try to buy a 40 unit on my first deal, because I think it's just probably a recipe for failure for somebody. But yeah, go buy a rental property after and simultaneously get yourself educated. But for me, the real education up front was doing. I made a ton of mistakes, but I made it with my own money. And then as I wanted to grow bigger, that's when I got educated with some people who have been doing it for a long time, and put myself in a circle. Surround yourself with people who are doing things that you want to do. So there's lots of education groups out there, but yeah, the first step is to just take action.
Okay, awesome, Joe. So I have a last few questions for you, Joe. You ready?
Okay. All right, man.
All right, number one. As we speak today, what keeps you up at night?
Yeah, that's a good question. I wasn't ready for that one. Well, right now, frankly, it's just cost increasing. So for the properties, so insurance and taxes have gone up on almost all my properties. So cash flow is getting squeezed. So trying to get creative and figure out how to meet our projections, because those are, like I said earlier, those are like variables that you really can't control, and they're really squeezing returns. So yeah, I'd say it's just like the variables that I can't control. I don't like not being able to control.
Absolutely, yeah. It's hard to predict when you don't know what's going to happen, right?
Yeah.
second question is, if you were 18 years old, right?
Mm-hmm.
You have the same knowledge as you had today, but you only had $1,000 in your pocket. What would you do?
The same knowledge I had today?
Yes.
Okay, so I've already been educated a little bit. I would probably go to like an event, like either like a Grant Cardone type event or Tony Robbins. I mean, I don't know what they would cost, but whatever event you could go to for $1,000.
Yeah.
And get yourself in that room with those people, and surrounding yourself with good people that are doing things you want to do is really what I would do with $1,000. There's not much else you can do with $1,000.
Right. Create the relationship, bond with people, get in the
right.
room.
Yeah.
Awesome. Great advice. And Joe, lastly, when people first meet you, what are the 3 misconceptions about you?
When they first meet me.
Yeah. Like upon
man.
meeting you, what are 3 things that you think people will have misconceptions of you?
Well, most people don't, when I first meet them, have no idea that I do real estate. So
What do they think you do?
whatever I did before, which was work for a company. So most people still don't even realize that. So yeah, that'd probably be the first one that I'm a business owner. That'd be one. Misconceptions. I'm very soft spoken. So
Okay.
I'm soft spoken. So I think most people don't realize that I do have a bite to me.
Yeah.
So I do have a little.
When need be, it comes out.
Yeah. And then the third, I just. You put me on the spot for some good ones, man. Holy smokes, Alex. Misconceptions of people who just meet me.
Yeah. Maybe within the first month. It's like they just they haven't learned about you yet.
Yeah,
right?
okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, so my values, right? It's integrity, family, and faith. So faith is huge to me. I think that's probably something that most people don't quite realize how important it is to me. We our kids go to school at our church, and
Right.
it's just a big part of me. So that's something that
Integrity, family, and faith.
yeah, those
Joe.
those are the big 3. Yep.
Thank you so much for sharing all that with us, Joe, today. I really appreciate it. There's definitely, I believe, since you're already a coach and with the experience that you've had and what you've gone through, there's a lot of value that people will have, not only in listening to this, but maybe they want to reach out as well. What's the best way for people to reach out to you, Joe?
You can email me at joe@joeydts.com.
joe@joeydts.com.
Yep.
Perfect. I'll make sure to leave that in the comments below. Joe, thank you so much for being on the podcast today. Have a great day.
Alex, thanks for having me and putting me on the hot seat at the end.
Hey, you got it, brother. All right, Joe. So we're going to stop the... For those of you who enjoy Joe's podcast, make sure you email him at joe@joeydts.com. And for those of you who want to get more videos like this, get more insight on the real estate, click here and here.